So hello, Nayana. Thank you very much for joining me today. Nayana is the Infrastructure Delivery and Enterprise Services Tech Lead for the Financial Times. Thanks for joining us. Can you give me a breakdown of your current role and how you came to be working at the FT?
Sure, thank you, Dennis. So I started my career as a QA engineer in mostly doing testing rather than quality assurance. And I was quite interested in the whole automation aspect of testing and how that eased people's lives. So I got into doing more of automation in the testing side of things. And then I realized the best people who can automate are probably developers. So we should get them involved in automation and being part of the whole testing process rather than just do it as a thing that happens towards the end of the process and avoid it from being a throw away the fence kind of thing versus having everyone in the team contribute to testing. So that's how I initially started working in the testing space and then moved on to more of a quality assurance kind of space where my main goal was to get everyone to be thinking about quality as a from the get-go rather than something that happened towards the end of a product development. And when I started at the FT, I started as a QA lead, where my role was to bring in that culture of quality by design as a way of working rather than something that was taught at the end of the process.
Yeah.
And once I did this for a year or so, I thought I could do this from a different perspective, and then moved on to being a tech lead, leading a team, and actually being in the team that builds products, and then contributing to the different aspects of quality and design and also the strategy of where we want to take our products. So that's what I do most of the days now, where I'm mostly spend quite a bit of my time in meetings, listening to what people have to say with all of the different tech stacks, and also looking at how my team builds products and finding areas that we could improve on. And the thing that I'm currently looking at is how do we reduce the cognitive load that we have on dev teams, and how can we, as infrastructure teams or platform teams, how can we reduce the cognitive load for dev teams? So that's the kind of space I work in currently.
It sounds like your experience from the previous QA role and how that automation came into that has actually probably given you a perspective that people in your area don't normally have, in a way. Like they know what it's going to be like. So if they can build some things into the pipeline earlier on, it can make the life a lot easier later on. Like you say, don't do it at the end, build it into the process. So yeah, no, that's very good. And in terms of the tooling that you use to kind of enable those processes, do you want to just take us through like a typical sort of tech stack that you've got that you're using for some of your pipelines in a way?
Sure, yeah. So my team works in the web infrastructure kind of space, which is like DNS, CDN, domain redirects, those kind of areas. And then also in the application infrastructure side of things, in terms of how we harden our Linux operating systems and provide operating system as a service to other teams. And the third area my team works in is providing monitoring as a service to other teams. So we mostly work on tools that provide a service to other teams. So we're more like a platform as a service team. Okay. I think with most of these tools, our usual pattern is we build something. Either we buy something from a third party, like if we're using a CDN in the FT, we use Fastly as our CDN provider. So we bought Fastly as a provider, or in some cases, if it's an open source tool like Graphite, we have built it ourselves. And then once we have these tool sets built, we then build the middleware, which actually helps dev teams interface with the backend infrastructure. And I think it's, for us, reducing cognitive load means making those middleware products as easy as possible to use. The the recent project that we did was migrating from DNS from a third-party company to using AWS Route 53 as a service. And when we did this, we thought of doing it with config as code first, which meant all of our DNS configurations are also in GitHub rather than manually change things in or use APIs. So we prefer to do it via GitHub. So when someone wants a new DNS record created now, they basically go to a GitHub repo, request the create a PR with the name they want to create and the backend they want to use, and then raise a pull request that comes to our automation pipeline. So we use Circle CI for most of our automation. So in the Circle CI pipeline, it actually checks that the configuration is valid, it's got the right syntax, and then we also do like a dry run of it to make sure that the config would work fine on production. And once that's done, we approve the pull request, and then the requester merges it onto master, and then our Circle CI pipeline runs again, which then pushes it to master automatically. So there's a lot more emphasis on having automation and tests, so we don't have to do a lot of manual checks in place. But I think we've moved away from having manual checks to having monitoring to check for failures.
Yeah, at different stages
I
along
think
that
that's
process.
yeah.
Oh, nice.
Also, if it fails, we would prefer to fail fast and revert back. So our monitoring is set up such that we know when these failures happen, so we can revert back our changes rather than actually do 2 days or 2 months of testing before something goes, even a small change goes live.
Yeah, nice. Is that I guess the end line, the user, when they want something, they almost go to a self-service portal and ask for one of something or two of something, and then half an hour later, an hour later, whatever they need is available and they can start using it, I guess. Is that
I think we are at different phases with the different products that we currently own within our team. So for some products, it's very self-service, where it's a completely automated pipeline. They will get all of the features they need by just creating a pull request with the right details of, like, we've created snippets of how they should create these things, and they can automatically go and ask for those kind of snippets and it would work. But there are some use cases where we still have to do a little bit of manual interventions and manually create things. Things like when someone wants to update the retention policy of their metrics on Graphite, that is still slightly manual, where we will have to still go and use our we do have automated script, but we will have to run it in admin mode. And I think this is where it gets challenging, where with admin mode, there's a lot of privileges and risks that come in along with it. So from a platform team's perspective, it's a challenge to balance the risks versus exposure and self-service kind of capabilities, I guess.
That's it. And I guess you've only got so many resources to put into doing the work that you will need done. So it's it's like it's on the list, but it's on a backlog, if you know what I mean, and it'll get there in the end.
Exactly.
So you've obviously heard about the coronavirus pandemic and how it's completely radically changed how all of us work. I just wondered how that affected you. I mean, I can probably guess the answer, I guess, but what change did you have to do? How did it impact your work? Just tell me a little bit about that.
I think personally, I live with my husband in this house, so we don't have any dependent family members that we had to look after. So I think from a personal point of view, it was quite easy to transition into working from home. But from a team's perspective, there was a lot around different people's health preferences, and there's also a mental health aspect that gets affected because of not having the social life, which was something that we had to work with for a couple of weeks, I think. But then from a work productivity perspective, given we can do our like platform teams, I don't think you really need to be in in an office space to actually get your work done, because all of our services are now in AWS or in cloud. It's easy to just connect your laptop to whichever is your service cloud provider and start working that way. So it was quite easy to transition from a work perspective. But then there were other social aspects and other things going around which did affect us a little bit. In fact, just 2 weeks after we went into lockdown, I remember us doing an away day, but remotely, which was quite interesting for the team, because every time we finish a big project, we take that opportunity to basically celebrate our success a little bit, and then also think about where we want to focus our energies next. And I didn't want something like a lockdown to stop us from having that bit of moment to celebrate our successes and stuff. So we did that, and I think the team enjoyed it. We did some icebreakers where people got things that they had in their house, and then we went through different sessions where we basically picked a particular purpose for each of those sessions. Used online tools like Jamboards and Trello and a couple of others, which helps in these kind of scenarios. So I think we've transitioned quite well, and I would, for anyone wanting to do these things, I would suggest looking at online, preferably free options or open source options for some of the tools that are available to replicate things that we would have done in office space. The thing that we've currently started looking at is how do we do more asynchronous working? I think one thing, when we're all in an office environment, you just turn around, and if you have a question, you can just ask, which is kind of missing now, which I think when we started work from home during this lockdown, everyone had to keep an eye on Slack all the time, which was quite taxing from a project productivity perspective, where you have to continuously context switch and come back all the time. And over the last a week or two now, not too long, we've now started talking about asynchronous working and how do we encourage asynchronous working, and what does that actually mean in terms of if you want to pair with other people, how do we asynchronously pair, how do we asynchronously collaborate, avoid long meetings but have more documentation. I think we do a lot of those things these days.
Yeah, because it's quite hard. It's like someone will send you a message, but you're having a cup of tea because you're just taking a bit of time out, or you've got to pop to the shops just because you need to get something. And it's almost having that, oh no, I've missed a message for 40 minutes. I need to reply, but not to let that cause any problems. It's like, it's the new way of normal now, and I sort of understand what you mean. And some of that stuff's quite good.
I think for us, it was more of a fear of missing out, I think, to some extent, more than anything else. Which has got better with time, I would say.
So it's interesting. I was going to ask you about how those ways of working have changed from when you first started in lockdown to now. And you already said some of those, which has been quite good. Do you think that work from home is here to stay? And personally, you're probably quite happy about that, or do you actually miss the people in the office?
I have always endorsed work from home. I think all the places I've worked at so far have been places which have been quite open with working from home. So I find not having to do the commute and getting that 2 hours extra to either do more work or do other things is always beneficial. I do miss the people a little bit, because I think we've completely socially disconnected from our from a personal level as well. We're disconnected from our family and friends.
This is almost the mental aspect of it, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think that is something I have missed. Also, from a team's perspective, if we went back to a point where we can start going back to offices, I would still probably prefer working from home most days, but maybe go in a couple of days just for the socializing and getting that. Physical. I mean, at the end of the day, we still are humans. We need that physical attachment and connections with people.
That's right. Okay, so I was going to ask about DevOps, and that it's a word that means many things to many different people. And I just wondered, in terms of DevOps. How do you see the FT going down the road of DevOps? Is it more of the mindset and the culture and the people, or is it more geared towards like a tool set instead of the other aspects? Yeah, it was just, how do you feel?
I think FT has been a place where DevOps has been a mindset and a culture since 5-6 years now, or even more. That's how we have seen it, and from a productivity perspective, I think for us it means making small, quick releases. So a few years ago, we probably did around 10-15 releases in a week, or even lesser. And now we have change API, an internal API, which actually shows us how many change requests we make in a day. And there's probably close to around a few hundreds, if not more. And that kind of says, it talks about the speed of delivery and the speed at which we are providing our customers with the end products. And I think that's the main key feature of DevOps for me when it comes to how you cater to your customers sooner. But I have often used the comes model to actually explain what DevOps is. So it actually means culture. You need automation. There's measurements. I think the other one, sharing. So all the 4 aspects are important. So from a culture perspective, I think you need a psychologically safe place where everyone feels part of the product that we're building, and we respect people from different backgrounds, and it's a more diverse product that we build in that scenario. So that's more of a culture aspect of it. From a automation thing, I think it's the tool sets that we use and how it speeds up the mean time to I think it says there are these metrics that we could use. Can't remember on the top of my head, but there were 4 metrics that the Agile book mentions, which talks about the speed of delivery and time to recover, and a couple of others. And the third one was measurement. I think this one I've often found being hardest in any dev cycle, of how do you measure that you're bringing value? How do you measure that whatever you've actually built is the right thing? I've often found that to be very hard with the DevOps, the comes model. And the last one is sharing. So it's all about collaboration and pairing and mobbing and those kind of things that we do on a regular basis these days. It's probably it's related to culture. I give culture the most important aspect of DevOps, but then I do feel like the tools are equally important.
Yeah, they just enable you to do it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you don't necessarily need all of them, but yeah, it's and there are different ways to achieve the same end. But sometimes, if you have that integration in the tool set there that work together, it just makes the whole thing a lot easier. Next one. So, I wanted to ask about women in tech. So I know for you're quite an active supporter. You do talks, you host events. I just wondered what that means for you, from your point of view.
I think growing up, I was in a school where there was equal number of boys and girls. So that's the kind of environment I've grown up in. But then moving into workplaces, it feels like that balance just starts decreasing, especially if you look in the infrastructure platformy space. I feel like there is not equal number of men and women. I still don't know what the real reason is, because platform space does inspire me as a woman. So I'm sure there are other people. It does feel like there's a little bit of prior history of ops. When we said ops, it used to be men in the past. So there are these preconceived notions that used to be, which have been changing over the years. And I think talking about what infrastructure space mean, what platform space means, what in general the engineering space entails. And it doesn't mean you have to be like the super smart person in science and maths. It's not all about it. It's more than that, is what I think. So my agenda has always been to create that awareness around what exactly, especially I'm more interested in the DevOps space and in the infrastructure space. So those are the areas I often talk to other women about who are not in engineering, saying how it's relatable to other similar roles they would have done in the past, and how there are transferable skills that they could bring into engineering as well. I think in the past in the FT, we've had a few people who have changed careers and joined the FT, and FT has been very good at nurturing and bringing them into the whole engineering ecospace that we have and stuff. So I think for me, it's about creating more awareness and getting young people realize that it's not something that happens in a corner in a dark space.
No, I've got 2 daughters, and my eldest nearly 13, and she likes the computer science. And I have to be careful I don't try and drown her in. If you learn Python, it'd be really good for you later on in life. It's just I just want to encourage her to do as much as she wants to do, but not turn her off. But realize that if she wants to, she can go and do that. I guess it's I don't want to stereotype or put her in a box that says oh no, you can't do that at all. I want to help her get to where she wants to go. So so on that, have you seen from over the years, have you seen positive steps? You just mentioned FT and how they help enable I guess the positions become available and actually take people on that are changing a career, but then nurture them and help them to get on the right path. Have you seen positive steps in general in the industry, or not that you necessarily know, but has it actually had a positive impact, do you think, over the last few years? I think it probably has.
I do feel like there is. I do feel like there's an increase in awareness, at least in what people knew in the past versus how it is these days. There's also a lot of boot camps and the crash course kind of courses that have come up these days, which is quite useful and like a good place for people to hook into, and then see if they're even interested. So I volunteer with Code First Girls, where I teach Python there, and it's a good the kind of students we have there is quite mixed. So there are people who want to build a website for their company or a startup that they have, to someone who wants to actually get a profession in an engineering company or something like that. So there's a wide range of people who are interested in tech. It's just, I think now I do feel like there are more opportunities where people can get hooked into these things. I'm sure there's still more to be done though.
Oh yeah, I suspect so. I was just going to say, is there anything that you would suggest, or any, just to level the playing field? I mean, I don't know if,
I think one thing that FT does really well, and I would encourage any company to do, is we encourage a 50-50 split in the number of candidates we interview when it comes to a role. So if we saw only 5 men for a role, we wouldn't close that role at that point, but actually make sure we see enough number of diverse candidates for any role that it doesn't mean that we would end up hiring someone just because of their background. It will always be the hire will only be based on their the quality of skills they've got, but then at least giving an opportunity to everyone to apply and interview them is something that we've done quite well in the last year and a half or 2 years.
Okay.
And I think I would encourage any company hiring for people to think about how do you diversify your it's like a funnel, the candidate funnel, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes, it's I can imagine that's always it's whenever I've been for jobs, it's almost like a rush. They want to get people through the door quickly, and as soon as they find the person, it sort of stops. As opposed to you might think you found them, but we just want to almost rubber stamp that and check that against another set of candidates, and then almost see everybody and then make the right decision. That's good. I don't know if it happened or not, but did anyone ever kind of inspire you in your journey? I guess
I mean, I think I've had a few people who have inspired me and who kind of nudged me. Who kind of nudged me to get me to where I am today as well, to some extent. So I think so when I started, I was like, oh, one day I would want to be a system architect, kind of something in that space. I didn't know what exactly that meant. But then I've had mentors who actually helped me move in that direction. And I think having someone as a mentor and also knowing who your sponsor is, not just your mentor, is very important. So mentor is someone who would coach you with the different aspects of your career and where you want to get to and all of those. But a sponsor is someone who actually will find you that next position that you can take take help you move in that direction, and also has some powers who could actually do something. So I think not just having a mentor, but also having a sponsor is important all the time, I would say. Something that I've started recently is not just having mentors, but a buddy as well. Preferably someone who doesn't work in the same company, if possible. Just who you think is in the same level as you is a good thing. I've found that to be very useful for me, at least. Where I have a buddy who I think we talk just once every month, but we discuss about problems that we face or challenges that we have in our space. And we find that we're not alone, and all companies have similar challenges to work with. And then that kind of gives you ideas of how you can translate it into how you can move in your career as well. And I think a mentor is quite useful in asking you those hard questions. Where do you see yourself in like 5 years time or whatever, which if it was just left to me, I would have probably never answered that question. But just because I have a mentor who asks me those questions on a regular basis, it makes me think, okay, I have to answer this person at least. So let me actually give some thought. But that's actually helped me move up in my career. And I think I would suggest anyone to have at least a mentor, if possible, a buddy, and surely a sponsor.
In terms of like events coming up, obviously there's probably nothing in person, but is there a particular website or a place to go that people can look at and get, if they're interested in this sort of thing? Where do you suggest they go to find out more and to get involved?
I think it depends on what inspires you and what motivates you to a lot of extent. Like for me, the DevOps space inspires me, and so I look out for DevOps wherever they happen, just to see if there's any notes published. And so DevOps Days. There's one that happens in London, but it does happen throughout the world as well. So that's one thing to look out for. I also have started following the DevOps Institute, the yearly summary that they send.
Is it the report?
The report, yes. The DevOps report.
Yeah,
yes,
I've seen that.
Yeah, that's quite useful to understand where people are and what kind of technology stacks are in trend and
yeah, it's
what
all the
are
trending stuff, isn't it? So you can sort of position yourself to be employable in some
exactly.
situations, I understand.
Yeah. And also, I think the other space is the cloud native forum, and there's quite a lot of docs around videos around the cloud native conferences from the past, which are very informative and useful. So I think those are my main areas that I mostly go towards. And because I work in like the web infrastructure and monitoring space, I just look out for things in those areas. I think it depends on what inspires you and what kind of tool sets you work with. You will surely find conferences and blogs about them.
When you just briefly going back to when you were saying about mentors in different companies, is there somewhere you can go and register and get involved and find a mentor that way, or is it something that is more of an internal to FT that they've helped you with?
At the FT, we have a mentoring scheme. So within tech, or product and tech to some extent, anyone who wants to be a mentor can go and register there's a doc. Just go and register saying I can mentor you on these things, and how many mentees I can have is what I would say. And then if you want to be mentored, you can go and look at that list and find who you want to be mentored by. From people outside, I found conferences to be the best way to find buddies or mentors outside of your company. They're a good place to network, and also they're a good place to find people who inspire you to some extent. You're like, oh yes, I would want to be like that person one day. So just going and talking to them sometimes does lead to you having them mentor you as well. Some people are very busy, but in a lot of cases, I've got very positive responses when I've gone and spoken up to people in conferences and said, "Hey, do you mind just talking about this particular thing I've got?" And they've been quite helpful.
Nice. I remember I was at one of the AWS conferences. I think it's the one in London every year that they do. Is it reInvent? And I saw a talk on chaos engineering, and the slides, how he put himself across, how he explained it, how he demoed it. And it was like, I came after that, I actually went down to the front and I said, I want to be a chaos engineer. I found it really, really motivating, and to see it all, it's like, oh, how could I do that? And I haven't actually followed up on it because obviously other things have happened, but I think that if I was ever going to go into anything, I think it would be a steer towards the whole chaos engineering. And for me, I think that's something that's going to be coming up, as people want to sort of test just how good their systems are in terms of, failing over, like the chaos monkeys and all the other stuff that they have. I think that's probably quite a nice little niche area that's probably quite interesting. If you go into a company to try and perform some testing, they'll know pretty quickly just how bad their systems are, and how they are not resilient, and they don't fail over, and they don't just carry on working. But then out of that, you build systems that do pass, and they do stay up. So I think for me, that's probably something I'd be quite interested to go into. But I feel like I'm getting too old now.
No, I do feel like conferences is a good place to be. More than I think in a lot of conferences, for me, it's less about the actual details itself, but more around the bigger picture and being motivated by that bigger picture. And then you will do your own research to find out all of the details you want. I mean, there's enough resources available on the internet.
Oh, yeah, there's so many places to go. And people are happy, if you ask, people are normally happy to share as well and give you some help.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend asking people. I asked you for this interview, and you said yes, and I'm pleased to do. But a lot of people will help out if they think they can add something.
I mean, personally, I am someone. I would tell myself to be an introvert, but then, and I find it hard to actually walk up to people and speak to them. But I think it's that balance between how motivated you are about something versus how uncomfortable you are. When you're motivated with something, it can I think
find some courage.
Yeah. You find that encouragement to
Yeah.
put your stress behind and actually walk up to people and speak about it.
Yeah. And when you've done it, you're just so happy that you did it. You found a bit of information you wanted. You got a bit further on the ladder, and you're kind of off again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, getting towards the end now. So, so you hire at the FT for various roles, I guess, within your part of the organisation. Other than sort of technical ability, how do you know if you found the right candidate?
This is always a very hard question.
Yeah.
I think so. At the FT, we do, in most teams we have at least two interviews. One is where we look at the technical skills, and the other one is to see if they're culturally, if they're a fit for the FT, and if FT is the right fit for them as well. So we try to make it more of a discussion rather than an interview. And usually I have tried to define, like, when you see a person, you sometimes feel, yes, this person's the right person, but that's more of a gut feeling. And I've often tried, whoever interviews in my panel, I've often told them to nail down what that gut means.
Can you write it down?
Yes. I mean, like, it's because it makes it harder to justify if there are two very good people. How do you, I don't want gut to be the decision making factor to decide if I have to go for one person another, but actually define what actually are the capabilities you need in your team. So one of the things I've done in the past is actually look at my team on a regular basis and see what kind of from a personality perspective, what kind of person would be a nice fit for this team. Is it someone who likes to go and speak in conferences? Is it someone who likes to just put their head down and work all the time? I think we've moved away from having those engineers who just want to have their heads down and just crack on with some code, to having a wider, I think it's more of those T-shaped engineers is what we've been calling them, who have more like in-depth knowledge in one area, in a technical area, but then they have a wide knowledge across a lot of different aspects. And I think it's we mostly look for their experiences. So rather than us asking them, can you imagine and say how you would handle a situation, we actually ask questions around, have you had these kind of scenarios in the past, and how have you worked around those scenarios? So asking more of those scenario questions rather than more of a yes or no kind of questions, making it more open, has helped us find people who we would have otherwise missed in the past. Also, I think it's one thing that we do at the FT is when it comes to these behavioral or culture fit kind of interviews, we don't just get people from the team interviewing them, but people from outside the team also interview them. This is just to see if they are fit from a broader FT technology perspective. Would they fit into the culture that we've got at the FT? Do they have the same kind of beliefs and ideologies when it comes to how we work as a company? So I think those aspects do help us.
Would you I keep getting buzzed here, sorry. Right. Would you say, sorry, I'll start that way again. So you've sat through quite a lot of interviews through the process that you've gone through. Is there any advice that you would give to interviewees not to do or to do more of?
I think being open and being open about what they know. So usually what we try to do in the technical round is to try and push them to the limit of where their knowledge stops about any particular product or service. and it's just to push them to see where it stops. It's not to see if they're good or not. It's more to see how much they know about technologies and how much depth they have in each of the different technologies. And we've often liked people who say, I haven't done this before, I'm sorry, and we can move on to other things rather than just talk things that they imagine and just don't hit the mark, which is quite disappointing sometimes to hear when they completely go off tangent and talk about other things. And also, I think structuring their answers a little bit around the STAR model: situation, task, your actions, and results. That kind of model is always helpful. I mean, it's very hard to expect it in an interview kind of scenario where there's a lot of pressure. But I think that's something which comes with practice. I think when you're preparing for an interview, if you can think of how would I structure my answers around these technical aspects. I think those two would be my main ones. And having eye contact with all your interviewers, if possible, is I think for me that's a must. I have had scenarios where that's not happened, and it's quite disappointing. I mean, what we're looking for is, can we work with this person can we sit with this person for 8 hours in a day and actually work with them? So that's what we're looking for. And if you don't feel comfortable, it would be hard.
It makes it hard. Yes, I've often thought that. I mean, I haven't done the sort of anywhere near the interviews you've done probably, but when it comes to people, it's almost, you can almost teach them anything. It's having them actually want to do it, and to contribute and to try, as opposed to people that may think they know it all, but then aren't they maybe as willing to try. You can teach someone anything. There's a course that will cover it. You can get them up to speed, and it's almost like the type of person that they are that you really want. That I guess that's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I think that kind of resonates with what I often tell people who are in the interview panels is it's from a tech perspective, I'm okay if they were okay with some concepts and just knew a few concepts, but then I'm not okay if they're not willing to learn new things, they're not willing to adapt to new
it's part of the course, isn't it, nowadays?
New platforms. Yeah, exactly. So there are some things that can be taught, but there are some qualities which are, I think, more of a human quality thing, which we would want people to have.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Do you have any, I don't know, stories or anecdotes or anything that's happened to you in your career, funny or maybe funny after the event? I don't mean anything bad, but again.
Yeah, I mean, one of the recent ones, it was a massive one. Was our ft.com domain records got deleted accidentally. No. And this was during a migration of us migrating from the old provider to the new provider, which meant we lost all of our online presence for an hour or so. I mean, the thing about this whole event for me was how it was handled. And this is where the whole psychological safety thing comes in play. So I got this call saying, by the way, someone's just accidentally deleted these things, and the person who actually deleted it called me and said, I think I've deleted all of this, I messed up. And rather than us talking about who did it, why it happened, and all of those, we tried to move forward and see how we can fix it fast. And when this whole event was happening, there were probably around 30 other engineers who were on this hangout, just so that they were just there to help if possible. And some people after the event did say that I felt like I couldn't help at that point, but if there was anything I could do, I wanted to be there to do it. So that's a kind of ownership and culture that I think we have at the FT, and I was very pleased and proud about that.
Yeah.
I mean, retrospectively, proud about how it was handled, though
Yeah.
not about what happened. But also, I think I was proud the way management handled it as well, where there was no questions around who actually caused this issue. There was questions around what we made to fix it, how did it impact our business, and what do we do to avoid this in the future.
Yeah.
There was no questions on the person, and there was no blame happening, which I think is a very progressive culture, which means it allows you to take those calculated amount of risk, which is what makes you go faster as a business. And being in such kind of environment makes you feel like, yes, I own this thing, so it's my responsibility to make sure it works at its best. And I've been very proud about how the whole event was handled.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will be writing about this in detail and publishing something soon, so you might see something in this space.
I'll keep an eye out. And last of all, I was going to ask you what you miss most about not being in London. For me, it's the chicken katsu from Bimbap.
I agree. I think it's the food.
What do you want? There's one over there, or it's over there, or it's over there. You can just go and help yourself. Yeah, I do miss that. You know, I've tried making it at home, and it just isn't quite the same. You know, it's missing something. You know, I don't know what it is. Probably sugar or something. I don't know. But I miss that.
Yeah, I think it's it is the food in central London, and the accessibility to things. It's so easy to get things, which because of the current scenario, we have to wait in queues, and it's never fun to do all of that.
Yeah, I hope. Well, I mean, it can't end, can it? Not until it's gone, and it doesn't. I just don't think it's going to go for a while. You know, we're stuck with this new normal, and just have to get used to it.
Yeah, I do feel like there was one aspect for me is the exercise, which was naturally happening because we had to get out of the house. You obviously get out of the house and get some exercise as well. Now it's more of a conscious effort that we have to put in. Otherwise, it's easy to miss it.
Yeah, we've got a dog, so he has to be walked.
Oh, you're lucky.
So it's like I have to go anyway, you know, and that's it. And if we can drag the girls out with us, then that's even better. But 9 times out of 10, they're quite happy not coming. No, but yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. I can imagine.
Oh, nice. Well, that's it. I don't have any more questions. Thanks for going through all that stuff. It's been. Oh, sorry, is there someone coming upstairs? Oh, fantastic. Sorry. Thanks very much. So I've got some shortbread from my wife. I'll cut that out. Yeah. I'll eat that in a second. That looks nice. It smells nice as well. No, brilliant. Thanks very much for that.